If you could say one thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's that they plan ahead. Little details are set up and paid off a few movies later and sometimes even many years later. Sit back, relax, and let's take a look at some of the MCU plotlines that are as dead as Tony Stark, R.I.P. Now let's start with Pym particles. Pym particles are pretty important. If you cast your mind back to Avengers Endgame, the power and the scarcity of the particles were a key factor in helping our heroes restore 50% of life in the universe, which makes it pretty bad that a bunch of them got stolen at the end of the first Ant-Man. Specifically, they were stolen by Mitchell Carson, former head of defense at S.H.I.E.L.D. turned Hydra agent. You'd think that the Avengers want to investigate that, but then again, they're pretty busy. Busy not having PTSD, for example.
You just kicked your ass full size.
Tony Stark's shaky mental health is a major issue in Iron Man 3. It drives the entire movie forward, representing some of Stark's biggest character development. I mean, damn, he destroys all of his suits at the end of the movie. He basically quits being Iron Man. And then all that's just kinda dropped. We next see Tony in Avengers Age of Ultron, and he's got suits to spare. Plus, he's experimenting with Ultron, and he generally just doesn't seem to be that post-traumatically stressed. Yes, he does have a vision of all the other Avengers dead, but it doesn't truly justify the character development in Iron Man 3.
Because the truth is, I don't want to stop.
And speaking of Tony, one of the main plot points from Iron Man 2, everyone's favorite MCU movie, is that the US government is worried about Tony's tech falling into the wrong hands. They've even mentioned countries like China and North Korea are working to replicate the technology. Tony, being Tony, shrugs and says it'll take him a decade to perfect it. Nothing to worry about. Well, it's been more than a decade now, so why doesn't every other country in the world seem to have their own Iron Man? It's almost like Marvel forgot about the whole geopolitical time bomb, and speaking of forgetting, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more of us here at ScreenRant. My name is I had to say it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this one really isn't a dropped plot line, but it's definitely an inconsistent one. The Blip. The Blip was a culmination of Marvel's first 3 phases, Thanos' big game plan. Killing half of the universe, a major world-shattering event. But since then, the movies or the TV shows can't tell if it was a serious catastrophe or just a punchline. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's a hard political reality causing a refugee crisis, terrorism, and so on and so forth. But in Spider-Man Far From Home, it's kinda just a gag. Peter and his classmates go off on a vacation in Europe, and it doesn't really seem to change much. It's a strange way to pay off such a big development, but it's actually not the only one. In Captain America Civil War, the Sokovia Accords were actually kind of a big deal, believe it or not. Big enough to, I guess, quote Tony Stark, tear the Avengers apart. But besides for a couple brief mentions in subsequent movies, it doesn't really seem to have that many repercussions. And then by 2025, they've been quietly repealed, which begs the question on whether or not they actually matter. Not everybody was thrilled when Bruce and Natasha started making googly eyes at each other in Age of Ultron. It was one of the more divisive developments in the MCU, an interesting one for both characters, but not something everybody was on board with. Which may be why, after that movie, it kinda just fizzled out. Of course, Bruce going into space might have had something to do with it, but they don't have much of a moment when he finally returns in Infinity War. They don't even seem to spend any time together between Infinity War and Endgame. And then Nat dies, so it's like whatever. Throw a bench wire at it. But Bruce has always been quite a ladies' man. Remember Betty Ross from The Incredible Hulk? She was Bruce Banner's big love interest in the 2008 film. But after that, she's not mentioned again, not even in passing. And to add insult to injury, her dad has become a major player in the MCU. To quote Tony Stark again, dick move, Banner. Dick move. One issue with the MCU's interconnected approach is that a lot of character development happens off screen. For one example, see most of Wanda and Vision's relationship, but you'll probably agree that Hulk's performance issues in Infinity War were a pretty big issue for the character, and it would have been nice to see how he resolved that. Hulk gets his ass handed to him by Thanos, unlike me who could take him, and then doesn't come out for the rest of the movie.
No, definitely not.
And then by Endgame, Bruce is like, fixed it, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's. Cross your I's, dot your T's. Remember Asgard, Jewel of the Nine Realms? Well, Asgard was supposedly essential to keeping balance of the realms. The implication, according to the first 2 Thor movies, was that without Asgard, the realms would fall into chaos. Well, at the end of Thor Ragnarok, Asgard has been literally blasted from the face of the universe, leaving the other realms like Vanaheim effectively defenseless. So what happened with that? Will we ever find out? Don't hold your breath.
I know a few techniques could help you manage that anger very effectively.
Now, the final Easter egg or plotline is pretty recent, but I find it suspicious. Do you remember the cameo from Blade at the end of Eternals when he appears to Dane Whitman? We only hear his voice, but it's definitely him. Where is that gonna go? Kevin Feige insists that we are getting a Blade movie, but there are legitimate reasons to be skeptical. The movie seems to be having some production problems, including the changing of directors, and the information all in all is just kinda sketchy. Is Marvel struggling to work out how to incorporate this R-rated character into their PG-13 universe? Will the Daywalker ever see the light of day? We hope so. And then again, it is the MCU, and a lot of those post-credit scenes do pay off. So we're gonna have to sit back and find out. If not, we'll be making another YouTube video. Anyways, this is the end of the video here. Thank you for watching. Those are the plot lines and Easter eggs in the MCU that pretty much go nowhere. Stick around for the post-credit scene where, I'm gonna tell a riddle. What word in every single dictionary is spelled incorrectly? Incorrectly. Have a good one.